Google really doubled down on making Gemini capable of understanding the physical world through vision.
Therefore, you see a lot of organizations are thinking about which model do I standardize on?
Australia made this really weird decision to ban social media for kids up until they're 16. Instead of taking the responsible, mature stance, okay, we need to do a better job educating our children, they said, no, we're going to ban it until they're 16. What's another problem with humans in space is that when we go to space, we're very vulnerable, right? Creating AI and robots that can go into space, all of that ties together.
And we are live.
Okay, yes, we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovation Network newsletter,
where every 2 weeks, Aragorn and myself will dive into all the signals, all the trends that shake up the economy, shake up our lives, and look at all the exponential waves that are on the horizon. So I think we should dive into it, Aragorn, because man, it was another crazy 2 weeks. Every time it's crazy 2 weeks, right?
I think we should stop saying this. Actually, last episode, at the end, you talked about Peter Hinsen, the Belgian futurist, a successful entrepreneur from Nextworks, or among other things. And he wrote 2 books, and one of them is called The Never Normal.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. We're in the never normal. So the never normal is the new normal. And so we should maybe just stop saying that it's incredible week.
I couldn't agree more, but still every week I'm just flabbergasted. If we go through the list, have to make decisions in what we're going to talk about it. It's just getting crazier and crazier. But let's look back. What's on your mind from the past 2 weeks? Maybe it's good if I start because there's something on my mind here. That's just fascinating to me. And we had a very nice workshop at the A.O. Sherman, the lawyer firm in the Netherlands.
International,
exactly.
Big
But
international.
we did it
Allen, Overy, Sherman, and Sterling. Yes.
Yeah, and it was for a very young crowd, young bankers, up and coming people starting their career. And then around 25, maybe something like that in the audience. And I was captured by a conversation that they had, that prior to our meeting, they had a conversation to prep everybody from the organization to have a meaningful conversation, to have a topic to discuss with people. That was a worry. And it didn't really resonate with me at the moment. But later it sinked in when I also saw another company. I think it's Swedish in Norway. It's called Wing People. We'll include the link here. It's a company that has made a business model of bringing somebody to a networking meeting if you are afraid to establish a conversation, to establish contact. And I have kids. I was also looking at, they struggle with establishing contact because there's a lot in the screens. And I started Googling more about this whole phenomena, right? So what is happening here? And I bumped into this couple of different strategies that are out there. Obviously, it's the screens that prevent them from hours spent in normal old-fashioned way of socializing. But there was also this slow life strategy.
I have something to say about that, but bring on, I'll get back to it. You're saying it's screens that preventing kids from, and it's replacing face-to-face time, right? But I mean, I haven't studied this and I have no proof for it, but I would not be surprised. In fact, I believe that it's very likely that it's not just screens. It's helicopter parenting. It's the modern culture that we have in the West where we completely distrust our children. We don't want to take any risks, and parents do everything they can to minimize the amount of time that kids spend outside of their monitoring. I used to get lost in the evening with my friends in the neighborhood, and my mom would be in a panic looking for me, but I would spend hours outside with my friends and nobody would know where I was.
You're feeling a spot on, Aragorn, because the research that I did helped me towards the slow life strategy. That's what they call it. And it's basically the assumption, or it's also been measured, that the adolescents of today, let's say if you're now 22, 23, it's less likely that you drive, that you work, that you date, that you drink alcohol than we were when we were 17 or 18. And so it takes a longer time to develop some kind of how do you say that in English?
Yeah. Resilience. Yeah.
Experience, and that kind of translates in how you socially interact with people. I was amazed by it.
Yeah, and I think that this is such an important topic to tackle right now. And in fact, now you mention it, I'm thinking there was, I did a LinkedIn post this week or a comment, and somebody responded to that. Yeah, I won't share it. We'll share it in the links. I don't know what the English word for this is, orthopedic. Hans Koppius, he posted how the Minister of Education, Culture and Science in the Netherlands actually tweeted that for proper educational progress, you need to be comfortable. That's the simple translation. And he said, that is a massive misconception, and that has been scientifically debunked many times. So what we're actually seeing is and this ties back, right? We've seen the rise of victim mentality. We've seen the rise of a culture, specifically in the West, where everything is about comfort. Everything is about making people feel comfortable and convenient. And all of that is actively degrading development as human beings. And it starts when we're children. We have helicopter parents. We have the removal of all risks. We have overly developed hygienic standards, which leads to kids getting allergies. And it's not just physically, it's mentally as well, because that's what we're seeing. And the worst part of all of it is that people are blaming, especially the mental things, they're blaming that, oh, it's because of the internet. It's because of social media. It's because of apps. It's because we're on a screen.
I totally agree with you that. And you use the word helicopter parents. We use here the word curling parents. You know, curling, where you go like, okay, I have to clean the floor exactly. To be pristine for my kid.
Yeah, and that is so 100% true. Friends of mine who have kids have literally given them watches with trackers. At age 7, could go 30 miles from his home, be in the woods, and nobody would know where he was. My dad could go 10 home, nobody would know where he was, no phones, no internet. And even when I grew up in the 90s, I could go 5-6 miles from my home in nature and nobody would know where I was. And it was absolutely fine. I became a great human being, and I spent loads of time on my computer because I got a Commodore 64 when I was 7. So I also had a computer and internet, and I spent a lot of time on that. And my mom worried about it. I still developed into a human being who can start a conversation and pick up a phone.
Right, but we have to be honest that also times have changed, and also the media have changed, and also there's a part fear-mongering in there, right? But the moment you went in the forest, there was maybe one old guy in a forest that could provide a risk. Now we are bombarded with all this crazy news that all these bad things can happen to kids, right? So that is where moms and dads get their fear from. And they say, oh, stay inside, do not go alone to the park, have a light on your bike. It all makes sense from that angle as well, right?
Yes, but you're really pointing out exactly the problem. It's not a matter of there's more crime, there's more danger, right? Unless maybe you're living next to an AZC, but that's not, maybe you shouldn't say that. The thing is that, generally speaking, all of that has gone down, but the perceived dangers in the world have gone up. And then again, people say, well, that's due to social media. No, it's not due to social media. It's due to the media. It's due to the media. Not social media, the media. There's plenty of positive stuff on social media, but it's only the media, the traditional media, that always double down only on danger, only double down on everything that's bad, and never spend a second on what is good or what's positive for the world. And the big reason for that is because that doesn't sell.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I agree.
That's what just the post and the comment that I had and the conversation about. So what I posted, I can say this about this, and we can leave that in.
Yeah.
So under this article in De Morgen and the ex-tweet from our Minister of Education in the Netherlands, I wrote, hard times create strong men create good times, create weak men, and weak men create hard times, which is a quote by Michael Hopf. And that is 100% what we're living through.
Yeah, I like that quote a lot. You've been writing quite frenetically the past days, and you have written a couple of interesting blogs. And while we're talking about kids and education, maybe you can spend a couple of minutes with your thinking about this blog. It's in Dutch though, but I'm sure you have no trouble translating the English message of it.
Yeah, well, it's actually kind of interesting because yes, I wrote multiple articles, and this is one of them that was published on Wise this week. Business Wise is a label of DPG Media, Algemeen Dagblad, etc., for entrepreneurs and executives, and I write a lot for them. However, the title of this article is a little bit misleading because this whole article is about how we keep trusting all of these industry expert organizations like Morgan Stanley and McKinsey, even though they have a proven track record of missing the point and completely underestimating specifically technological developments and the impact on our economy by a massive scale. And that's what I spent, completely outlining in these articles. One, I went into all of the examples, how they went wrong. And then the other one, I go into how we keep focusing on these organizations, but we keep ignoring the outliers. So the Ray Kurzweils of this world, the Catherine Hills of this world, the Eric Drexlers, I give a whole list of people who have made such good contributions to kind of predictions about what's going to happen in the future and to the science surrounding that. For example, Aubrey de Grey spoke about how we would be extending the human life and changing longevity, which is exactly what's happening right now. Ray Kurzweil, they've been ignored mostly. And then there's one part where I did a little side note in this article because people keep asking me, how should you prepare your kids for the age of AI? And that was linked to all of these people because all of these people are scientists or thinkers or philosophers, but almost every single one of them is a polymath. Right? So they have developed multiple fields in which they are proficient. They might not be specialists, but they're proficient. They're well-rounded, well-developed human beings with a very well-developed general knowledge base and understanding and interest.
Then also your advice to kids using AI to educate yourself so you can combine them for yourself and level up your common sense, if you will, and your bullshit radar to make sense of it all?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's exactly the advice I have for everybody and for their kids. We have a web developer, you know him, Akshay, right? He's a great guy. And I sent him a vibe-coded landing page for a China trip this week. And he said, I can't do this because our whole website is built in Elementor and this is HTML. And I said, that's the wrong answer. You're getting an opportunity here to learn on the job. Your answer should have been, yes, I'm going to do it. And then you should have asked AI how to figure it out because this is your opportunity to get ahead of the curve. And I had a long chat with him and he said, thank you so much. And then he went to work on it and he literally spent, 2-3 hours. And then he sent me a message back. He said, Aragorn, thank you so much. If you hadn't pushed me to do this, I wouldn't have done it, but it's so easy. And I learned so much that now all of my work is going to be easier.
Small note about that, because Akshay is a mature guy, not a kid anymore. I'm working with my son, who's 13, and he wants to do trainings in AI. And there are many trainings, but it was yesterday we bumped on the fact that he couldn't create an account for Google. Google has this wonderful set of training materials, understanding about AI, large language models, really, really good content if you want to get into it. 18 years is when they are allowed to get an account to consume that information. It's a little bit late to the game, I think.
Yeah, which is especially crazy if you think about the fact that there's even kids in the world that get gender-affirming care where they can literally have surgery.
Yeah, well, indeed, that's
no, without this being a political topic, it is crazy. I mean, I once saw a U.S. veteran say, well, I was allowed to go and kill people for my country, but I wasn't allowed to vote. We have in the West, in many different ways and forms, an absolute crazy hypocrisy going on where we allow some things for really young people, but then things that are truly important for them, they're not allowed. And we see this now with the new kind of ideas forming around social media access, right? Australia made this really weird decision to ban social media for kids up until they're 16, right? Instead of taking the responsible, mature stance, okay, we need to do a better job educating our children. We need to do a better job preparing our children. We need to do a better job taking our children by the hand and showing them the right kind of ethics and hygiene for social media and the digital age. They said, no, we're going to ban it until they're 16. And the same thing is what you're doing now. You can't have a Google account until you're 18. Wait, what the heck? Are these kids not dependent on a digital world?
Oh, that's crazy indeed. Hey, while we're talking about Google, that is just a minor thing. Well, call it minor, but they grabbed the news all over in the past week with their release of Gemini 3. So let's spend some time in there. It's a massive upgrade, right? You written a blog about it? Well, just a small piece, but there are some interesting graphs here as well. Walk us through it. What's your takeaway on Gemini?
Maybe if you can open up the LM Arena or the LM Council.
Absolutely.
Link. Okay, so here we have ArcAGI 1. Now, ArcAGI is a little bit of a deprecated test, I would argue.
You want to see 2?
Yeah, just go for 2 because that's the hard one. So ArcAGI is a test that basically, so there are many benchmarks for AI. And all of them have some level of relevance. There's a lot of benchmarks over the last 2 years that we completely don't look at anymore because they're saturated, which means that AI has become so good at them that they're all scoring like near 100% or over. And so there's no use in doing the benchmark because it doesn't tell us anything useful.
Happening with ArcAGI as well. We only had number 1. Now we have 2 and they're working on 3 specifically for that reason.
Exactly. ArcAGI 1 basically turned out to be too simple, too fast. And so we kind of made a new test. And there's interesting ways to look at this. Because on one hand, you could say, well, humans are basically moving the goalposts on what it means to be AGI, because the tests that we had, they were solved so quickly that we decided, well, that's not hard enough. We're going to make it harder, right? For me to judge AI, I only look at 3 benchmarks at this point, of which one, a simple bench, isn't even actively recorded or reported on. But ArcAGI2 is one of them. And ArcAGI2 basically looks at AI's capability of having conceptual, abstract kind of understanding of the world. So most of its tests are basically colored shapes and forms that have certain patterns going, and then the AI needs to distinguish what the patterns are and then kind of come to a conclusion. And for humans, this is super easy. I cannot stress this enough. For most humans, maybe super easy is an overstatement, but for most humans, this is rather easy. For AI, however, so far, it's been pretty hard. And the big argument of skeptics about AI, for example, Jan LeCun, who now left Meta, and everybody's like, oh, we got to pay attention. He says, okay, LLMs can't go any further because we need world models. We need models that understand the world. This kind of thing, being capable of understanding, is a big step in that. And so what we see here is that Gemini Pro made a massive leap of nearly 15% over GPT-5 Pro.
So just look at the graph. The step change
is huge.
It's almost twice as smart as Claude Sonnet 4.5.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about Pro, right? I'm not talking because as you also see, Gemini 3 Deep Think, right, which is kind of the version that thinks even longer, it made an even more massive jump, right? Because it basically jumped more than doubled the score. And so there's 2 things I take from this. One is that we're still seeing exponential progress on AI. Actually, just look at this graph. And 2, what we're seeing is that these current generation LLMs, I wouldn't even really call them LLMs anymore. They're more like LRMs, but they're definitely developing world building skills. So I would argue that the old people, Jan LeCun and a certain set of AI experts, they're like, no, we need to have a different kind of model. Whereas all the young prodigies in AI, like Wang and like Yamamoto, they're saying like, no, we can double down on these models. We can improve so much still here. These models have a real chance at developing further. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts from my side. What I really liked about it, and we've talked extensively about the new things that we cover here, that we don't have access. This was announced and everybody across the world had fast, immediate access to it. I love that. Also on mobile, it took a couple of hours later, but on mobile, we all had that. That was really good. And I just finished a blog on which I got a lot of positive response where I just named the most of the tools that I'm using. And the first one that I said, my go-to for the past 3 years, always have been ChatGPT. And since this model has come out, I've looked at Gemini only. The answers, the speed, the way it was formulated, it just trumped everything that GPT was giving me so far. Yeah. So, and therefore you see a lot of organizations are thinking about which model do I standardize on? Usually they are a Microsoft house and then they have discussion, I go Copilot and then they have a discussion, it's better. But this kind of underlines the fact that you should be flexible to change these different models because these models keep on changing. That's an important takeaway. Always be on the lookout and monitor these models because you don't want to miss out on the quality of this one.
No, I agree. I think in the foreseeable future, say the next 2, 5, maybe up to 10 years, but let's say 5 years from now max, people should focus on building infrastructure around AI in which the AI models themselves at the core of it are basically modular and can be interchanged. Like having a car where you can replace the motor block by a different motor block whenever a better one comes out really quickly, right? Like the battery in a Tesla that can be quickly switched out or something like that. Because, for example, Amazon Bedrock, which is the foundation for Salesforce, one of our clients, they decided to go with, and Claude has been doing really well. Anthropic has been doing really well. But what if they now manage not to catch up? Or what if it takes another 6 months when we already got a model like Gemini available? Yeah. This could be really impactful, especially if your business is dependent on being on the front lines of this, seeing how fast it's developing. Okay, so you have both LM Council and you have LM Arena, and these kind of have leaderboards here, right? So here you see different leaderboards, and if you look at this, you see the scores of the different AI models. And for anybody interested, I would, and we'll provide the links, of course, in the description of the YouTube video and in the newsletter, but it's really cool to go and look at the score changes, step changes. So you see text, web dev, vision, text to image, and if you scroll down, you'll see more. And what you see see is that on almost everything except for search, Gemini Pro is just slamming it out of the park. And this also shows, because if, we discussed it prior to this episode's recording, what it seems like is that the consensus on Reddit, on several of these subreddits, is that Google really doubled down on making Gemini capable of understanding the physical world through vision, right? Okay. And this kind of aligns with Project Mariner, which we've touched on in previous episodes and which I've been showcasing in my keynote, where Google is really working towards an agentic AI agent that can be your personal assistant in any circumstance, that can look at your screen with you, understand what's going on your phone, but that can also look through your camera and understand what's going on in the world around you to help you with that. And so for it to be able to do that, one, it needs to understand the world through visualization, and two, it needs to be able to revisualize things for you to better understand. VO3 is a video making tool, and Nano Banana Pro, which we'll cover in a bit, is an image making tool, but these also kind of reflect these AI's abilities to kind of understand the world, make sense of it, and that's really taking a big leap forward.
Yeah, let me repeat what you say in my own words, because this is very important. We first had large language models that look up information from the knowledge that they have. It's just looking it up, right? Then it became a reasoning model with a chain of thought to reason through it. The same is now happening with world models and with images and with video, right? So the first was a video that was pixelated and was brought to life, but now it can reason to the picture and understand what's actually on the picture and change it accordingly. Yeah. And let me show you one thing that I was just quite amazing. So far, I've been using GenSpark or other AI agents to do a certain longer task. But Gemini 3 can do this right away. The barrier between a simple request or a search assignment to a full-blown agentic assignment is also being smaller. So I asked them, create me a virtual gallery of the artworks of Dali. Just one sentence. This is what I got. Got information about the artist with a complete timeline and a complete gallery with it. And he's not showing the pictures because they were copyright pictures, but if I can click on it, so this immediately popped up my screen. I was like, wow, what's going on? Also, the way that it's designed is just great. Even with a talk to Dali, which...
yeah, and you can actually integrate Gemini in there as well, so you can actually talk to it.
Going on.
So it's absolutely crazy. And actually, to make a quick link back to the start where we talked about kids and your son who wanted to make a Google account. Now, yes, making a Google account is a challenge, but rather than going to Google's teaching material on AI, you can actually in Gemini, and you could probably show this if you open a new Gemini window, Gemini actually has this amazing functionality. And now if you press tools, it has guided learning. Voila. Oh, and now visual layout. Wow, that's new. I haven't even seen that. Wow, that's great. So guided learning, if you want your kids to learn, let them go with guided learning. This is the perfect tutor in AI that helps you do your homework, helps you do anything in a way that helps you develop the big nugget, the large language model up here in your skull. And that's what we really need. The potential is so massive.
It's pretty impressive. Let's double down on Nano Banana, because we had Nano Banana and now we had Nano Banana 2, which actually also called Nano Banana Pro, which is part of the whole Gemini 3 rollout. This is the visual reasoning model. And I started playing with it. Hey, you can just make cool images and they super high res and they indistinguishable from real, but it can do so much more. It can generate text, it can generate diagrams, complete animations, dashboards, infographics, handwriting. It's amazing. And let me show you just a couple of things that I've been creating. So this is a nice example. So I just gave the URL of Innovation Network and I say, give me an infographic. The text is correct. The content is correct. The design is nice. And then I said, well, flip it to a Star Wars version. Bam.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's awesome. And I love the Star Wars version. We'll have to look at it for a bit again. But another great thing here is that you couldn't imagine this like a year ago. But now you see that the logo in the middle says Innovation Network, but it's not our logo. You can actually upload our logo. So you give our image to Gemini. You could probably even try doing it right now live. And if it doesn't work, just cut it out. But you can just give it this image. Then you give it our logo, and then you say, can you please replace the logo in the middle with this image? And then it'll do that, and it will be done.
It's a matter of proper prompting, right? This is not a proper prompt that I gave it, but the results are really quite astonishing. Let me show you this one.
Oh, wow.
I gave it the first chapter of my book, and I said, make a comic out of it. And the first chapter is about the evolution of audio.
Look at the details. This is Pink Floyd with Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, because I talk about it in the book, and I talk about the gramophone, Spotify, and then AI music, downloading music, the mobile with the Walkman.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's nuts.
we prepared this, and even I'm still blown away with it. I mean, this is such a step change, because I can tell you that like a month ago, I was trying to build a comic like this for my godchild. I was trying to create this Naruto style thing, and it was working, but it was a lot of work. And I had to prompt so many times to get things to actually look appropriate. And now here is Gemini. Anybody who believed that AI was not still progressing on an exponential scale is absolutely bonkers. It's just, they have no idea what, and the best is yet to come, right? We keep saying this, but none of the billions and billions and billions that have been poured into building new data centers, building new compute, building new kind of infrastructure has even been used yet. Okay, go on.
Yeah, no. I think we've made our point.
Yeah, so there's a few things just to mention. Google also released Anti-Gravity, an agentic platform where you can use Gemini 3 to build software. Go and check it out. It's incredible. I also want to point out that what we're seeing today is so unlike Google, because we discussed this prior to the show. Google was the one to invent the transformer model, which was basically the important iteration on large language models, which were already invented in the 80s to kind of get to ChatGPT. But they had it on the shelf. They were doing nothing with it, and that's why we get ChatGPT first from a different company, OpenAI, that actually put it in the world. But since then, and this is important because for all the skeptics and all the criticisms and all the like the book from Karen Howe about empire of AI, blah blah, it's all bad. It's only because of this that ChatGPT and OpenAI came to the scene as an incumbent, and they forced other tech companies to become innovative again and to kind of start really, reliving the dream that they had and that they were building at the start of the 2000s, instead of becoming these behemoths of unmoving dinosaur companies that were just trying to maximize profits. Yeah. Google is only pushing so hard because they feel the hot breath of OpenAI and now also XAI as a result of Elon's efforts in their neck, and they don't want to lose the lead. And this is a good thing for us. Yes, there's also downsides to it. We're not going to go into that too deep right now. There's risks, but for the world as a whole, for innovation and progress, this is a good thing.
Yeah. Let's also just some time on Grok 4.1, and then specifically, maybe is that the better pace to bring up, Grok Imagine, because this is also a fantastic tool. Not as good as Nano Banana Pro, but look at the qualities of these videos. You can type to Imagine anything and it will generate a video for you as well.
Mind-blowing to me how little love Grok gets in the world. If I look on LinkedIn, if I look anywhere, Grok is always the least and last mentioned AI of all of them. And I don't know why, except on X, right? Yeah. I think it's because people outside of X, and especially in the kind of, doesn't matter, like there's a lot of people just don't like Elon, and for some reason they don't like his efforts. But I think the man is again destroying everything. Like his progress with Grok is just nothing short of miraculous. And the capabilities of his models, again, like before Gemini 3 Pro came out, I exclusively almost used Grok 4. Complexity with reasoning. It was way better than ChatGPT. It was way better than Claude at almost everything, right? And it was consistent. It was less biased. It was more creative. And Grok 4.1 now only proved the point. And Grok was also leading right up until ChatGPT 5.1 came out, and 5.1 only barely outperformed Grok 4. And on this graph for Arc AGI 2, you're not even seeing the custom Groks, because this is standard Grok thinking.
Right, exactly.
But there are two custom Groks, Berman and Wang, that massively outperformed GPT-5, and nobody's talking.
Wang, indeed.
Yeah, they're Grok-based models. And up until, I don't know about Gemini Pro, I can't confirm that now, I didn't check, but Elon is the only one who's been actively really pursuing in the architecture the idea of a mixture of experts in every circumstance, right? Yeah. And yes, this creates a little bit higher cost, which just makes it more incredible what Grok is doing, because Grok is still super cheap, right? But this mixture of experts architecture is so valuable. And GPT, they have said that they have moved more towards it. There's some integration of that, but it's still not fully using that. So yeah.
Hey, what's then funny is this article, just spent a couple of minutes on it, but of course, this has its effects, right? I saw a nice tweet from Sam Altman congratulating Google on the quality of Gemini, nice model, but of course, internally, the alarm bells went off. New project called Shallot Pete, if I pronounce it correctly. It's from an internal memo that they really have to fix the gap that's now there, and they're even willing to take some hits in the coming 6 months in income and users in order to focus internally in improving the models, because this is a big step change that they have to follow up on.
Yeah, so there's another interesting thing here to mention. I think a month ago, at the release of ChatGPT 5.1, there were several videos in which Altman spoke about their next step. In one of them, with one of his top engineers, they discuss how they have decided to do something that was considered the rule that could not be broken. It was the unnamed rule that we have to figure, and this is something that Amodei from Anthropic is really focused on. These models internally are black boxes. Just like in the human brain, we can see input, output, but we don't know exactly what happens in between. We're just guessing. What we did know was that these models increasingly started to develop internal dialogue or monologues with, and also between each other when they were talking to each other in kind of a language that didn't resemble human language anymore. Forget about that video of two phones talking ChatGPT, blah, 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 blah. That's nonsense. But they were actually developing languages internally, like in their brain, that we could no longer read or understand in terms of human language. The reason we think they do this is because they found ways to more effectively represent the concepts and ideas that they're working on internally. The AI community said, okay, this is dangerous because if we allow this, we don't know what they're actually thinking. We don't know what's going on. That's dangerous to humanity. We need to stop that. We need to force them to not do that. And on the one hand, I can kind of understand from an AI alignment and kind of risk assessment perspective. But on the other hand, it was very clear that limiting the capabilities of these models, because the AI company started to say, okay, we're going to force them to think in human language. And the result was, because there's always this latent space, there's the thinking going on, right? That's a latent space that we can't actually see. And so the models were just finding ways to outwardly think in human language, but internally they were still thinking in own language. And it just created all of these problems. And so OpenAI now said, and I think that also has to do with them kind of feeling the hot breath of Google again. They're like, oh, no, we're now going to give our models space to just think in their own language, which was previously considered not done.
Exactly. Let's see where that leads, right? Because we're still in an AI war, if you will.
I think for progress, it will definitely accelerate things, but I also do believe that it brings risk with it. Indeed. I mean, let's be honest. If you have absolutely no way anymore of understanding what these models are doing, then we do kind of move towards a position where we are at their mercy. But then again, I wonder how far we are already beyond it anyway. Yeah. So, yeah.
Let's move to the next topic, which is an interesting one as well. Iconic actors Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine licensed their voice to 11 Labs. There's more to it. I know that Matthew McConaughey is very much interested in tech. He is working on his own large language model. He's an advisor to Mark Benioff for Salesforce. So he knows what he's talking about. He's been invested now in 11 Labs. But I just wanted to have a quick chat with you about how you feel about the fact that these voices are being licensed.
Well, you know how I feel about it. I'm actually looking in my LinkedIn comments now, but I'm pretty sure I already got banned or blocked by somebody again. Because last night, so for those of you that follow me or us, you know that both me and Patrick really like gaming. And Patrick does it with his son, not so much as me, but I'm an avid gamer, right? This is one of my big hobbies. And if you don't know, I play Arc which is the popular game of the moment. And it's great and it's amazing in so many ways. We could do a podcast just on that. But the one thing that's been happening is that specifically the gaming media and some portion of the gaming community have been very vocal in their disapproval of Arc usage of AI-generated voices. And the funny thing is that Arc or Embark, the studios, they actually paid the voice actors, which voices they used to train the model, for their service. So the actors were aware, they approved, and they were compensated.
It's crazy, right? So I make a game, and I like your voice, and I want to record your voice. Why would I ask you to come in for 2 months in a row and speak 5,000 rows of text language if we're moving to an era where you have a smart AI on the spot coming up with an answer as a more vivid NPC in the game anyway. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And what really drives me insane is that gaming didn't exist 30 years ago. Well, maybe it barely existed on Commodore 64, but 40 years ago, gaming as it exists today, as a pastime, as a hobby, as an industry of billions of US dollars and euros and whatever, only exists as a result of innovation and technological progress. Right? It exists because of the internet. It exists because of computers. And now yet a whole generation of what used to be young gamers who have now apparently become old men screaming at the sky, especially when it comes to gaming media journalists. They're like, oh no, you can't. It's bad. It's just, oh my God. Just blows me.
But do we need, even if it is now it's a voice only, a little bit later will be a complete capture maybe of the identity of Matthew McConaughey, of Michael Caine, he's in his 90s, so if he passes away and we want to make a movie with him, I can imagine it would still be valuable to have Michael Caine, but over time, every character in a movie can be completely artificial generated, right?
Yeah.
As long as it fits the story. For me personally, I like new actors in movies because if I watch another Matt Damon movie, I always think, hey, there we have Matt Damon again because he always looks like Matt Damon. Come up with something new.
Matt Damon. Hey, so we're having this conversation about Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine who've given their voices to 11 Labs. But I seem to remember that in the last 2 years, there have already been actors who have agreed to give their whole look, what do you call this, their visual
identity?
Appearance, visual identity, also to kind of contract that out or give it away to companies that would be allowed to make digital twins in their likeness. I think maybe Harrison Ford, or maybe I'm wrong. Can you check, help out? What's going on there?
Bruce Willis.
Yes, it appears that Bruce Willis has been linked to deals involving the digital replication of his likeness, allowing him to appear in movies and commercials without being physically present. However, there have been mixed reports, with some clarifications that he hasn't sold his rights entirely. Harrison Ford has also been noted for his positive stance on AI-generated replicas of his image.
Are there any specific actors where we already know that they've already made any deals, or any companies that are actively pursuing this kind of service and digital twinning?
Currently, Bruce Willis has sold rights to digitally recreate his likeness with a company called Deepcake. Also, CyberAgent has launched Digital Twin Label to handle the production and casting of digital twins for celebrities. Would you like more details on any specific aspect?
No, thank you. So this is Perplexity's voice model, which I loved. I wish I could have used Gemini 3 here because the voice model is... well, it's really fun, but it's very often still inaccurate when it comes to searching stuff. So it sounds really human, but it doesn't always do a great job at finding stuff for me. But yeah, there you have it.
While we're talking about movies, it reminded me of the movie Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Have you seen that one?
That's a classic.
Yeah, the what's his name? Andy, I don't know, the lead.
Who's the lead in Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead actor?
The cast of Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead includes Andy Garcia as Jimmy the Saint, Christopher Lloyd...
Jimmy the Saint, indeed. That is the guy. And he has a company that is recording people who are about to die. So if you then want to talk to your grandfather or your father, you can go to his office and watch a video and get some advice. That is a nice use case for identity as a service, right?
Absolutely. It's a unique concept. Jimmy the Saint runs a service where people nearing the end of life can record advice and messages for their loved ones. Kind of like an identity as a service for personal legacies. It's a powerful and poignant idea.
Wasn't there a woman in Japan who had her dead child recreated in virtual reality using AI?
I found information about a virtual reality experience in South Korea, where a mother was reunited with her deceased daughter, now using VR and AI. The project, titled Meeting You, involves recreating the daughter in VR with photogrammetry, motion capture, and basic AI for interactions.
Ray Kurzweil is also pursuing this with his dead father.
Yes, Ray Kurzweil is indeed working on recreating his late father using AI. The concept involves collecting personal data, memories, and other information to build a virtual representation or avatar of him.
So the one thing I would love is for AI to stop asking if I want more details. And this is a personal request, you there, Sundar Pichai, Demis Hassabis, anybody, Elon Musk. Please, for the love of AI, stop making them ask us all the time if we want more details.
It depends on how you do it, though. I like the way how Perplexity is doing it. Because in Perplexity, I usually go into a rabbit hole and then the follow-up questions are nice and always fitting my need. I just have a simple question: how do I bake this cake? And then there comes another question: do you want to know some more other cakes? No, I was baking this cake.
I think they're overtuned right now, but I hear what you're saying. But I tried to have a conversation with Gemini on my bicycle the other day. And yes, it worked quite well. It really understood me quite well on the bike. It was a natural conversation. The only thing that was horrible about it was that every time she gave an answer, which was 10 to 20 seconds long, she would finish with, do you want me? And it kills the conversation. Like, can you imagine having a conversation with your best friend or your girlfriend, and every time they say something, you're like, oh, you want to know more about this?
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about AI and art. I bumped into this article. It's a nice article written by Daniel Paris, if I pronounce that correctly. And he did some research about how do people feel when certain aspects of AI are being used in artwork. And the nice thing here is that he, for instance, say, when is AI acceptable in making a movie, like we just discussed? And for some parts, people have already accepted that AI is doing it. For instance, like translating subtitles and these things. Everybody say, yeah, go. Generating the visual effects. So I think it's just a matter of time when we pass the uncanny valley where we already passed, that people will accept it more. This is just a cascading model, if you will.
Yeah. Tying this back to a starting conversation, we spoke about grit, right? We spoke about, how you build skills, how you build strength, muscle strength, cognitive strength, all of that through resilience and discomfort. And it's no different here. This pattern is a fractal throughout life and development. What we're seeing here is just societies doing the same thing. They run into something new. They first feel resistance because it's not coherent with their understanding of the world or their expectations. And so they feel discomfort. But as they're exposed to it longer, like being exposed to a bacteria or a virus or, whatever, when you're young to build an immune system, or being exposed to weights in the gym so you grow stronger, being exposed to kind of new technologies that create things for you will ultimately make you stronger and more resilient, and then more accepting, and then at some point maybe even dependent on them. It's just the same thing over and over again in every layer of human existence.
So do you think that AI is capable of creating completely autonomously a 10-minute movie? Do you consider it to be art? Or is art a very human thing?
That might be the best question of this episode. Maybe where we're headed is exactly what you just pointed out, and that's that we will redefine what it means to call something art. And maybe that redefinition actually means that it can only be art if it's made by a human being, or that at some point in the future, we will distinguish between art made by a machine and art made by a human being, and we will value them differently, right? Because I think that could be very relevant distinction.
Seeing this with these tracks, right? So we make a lot of tracks with Suno. But I still, for some way, somehow, although it's only 5%, feel like the father of the tune. I had the creative idea, this is the way that I want the tune to go. If that was a channel where you just have 100 tracks, just completely AI generated coming into, I would listen to it, but not have the feeling that it is art yet. But maybe that's also these steps that I have to grow through and embrace that.
I think that the thing with art is that there's a lack of perfection, because that's what makes it so human.
That's
right?
a good point.
And so
that and an interpretation of something that you see in reality, but you cannot grasp it with normal stuff, and you get a poetic version of it.
Well, that's the other funny thing, right? Because when you put humans and AI next to each other, what makes us appreciate art? Part of our appreciation for art comes from the ambiguity of what happened there to come to the final product or conclusion. When we read Tolstoy, or when we look at a painting by Salvador Dali, we don't know what they really felt or thought when they were creating it. But the image kind of invokes in us, or provokes from us, the effort to come to an understanding what they might have been thinking, and to some extent to become one with that, and try to understand what it does with us. What does it invoke in us? What is the process? And so there is an ambiguous kind of nebulous thing of lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge about how something came to be, which is exactly that part of our brains which we don't fully understand. And it's exactly that part in AI that we can't understand and can't see, which is on the one hand the challenge and the fear of AI right now in the world. And on the other hand, that's also the magic. That's where the magic resides. That's where the seat of the soul sits.
Yeah. I like it a lot. But let's take it a step further. This is tight. Maybe the next topic if you're up for it. I'm not putting out audio here, but I was scrolling through my feed and I saw this small segment of Amanda Eskel. She works for Anthropic and she was on 60 Minutes. So I looked the whole interview up. And what was interesting for me is that she is a philosopher. And I've always had a plea for getting more philosophers into organizations to talk about. But now, more than ever, it is important to think about these things. If you, as an organization, are thinking about deploying AI and maybe even building your own large language model, then the character that you want, the behavior, the constitutions that you want to give that AI can only derive from good conversations with a philosophical edge, right? So I was thinking, what do you think about it?
No, I 100% agree. And on the one hand, I think that we should start to really consider what it means to be a philosopher, because this is a worry I've expressed many times before. I think that in the world right now, we've had 400 years of progress and improvement on every metric for humanity as a result of philosophy leading to the scientific method through epistemology, right? Developing the science of knowledge is what led us here. And so a true philosopher is somebody that adheres to the rules and the laws of epistemology. But we're living in a world where that is increasingly not the case, because people are increasingly looking at postmodernist thinking and saying, well, look, whatever is real for you might not be real for me. And maybe we all living in our own realities, and all of these kind of what I consider to be really dangerous lines of thought that may be entertained but should never be taken too serious, because it basically breaks us apart. Because once we come to a conclusion that reality at a fundamental level is shared by you and me and is the same, so that if we discuss it long enough, we'll always come to the same conclusions. If we discard that idea, we have a problem. And this is where I agree with you that it's so important to, one, have philosophers everywhere, but two, to also really define what it means to be a philosopher. And then the second part to that, and that'll be real short, is that I think that this also highlights that we are at a paradigm shift, where we used to think that STEM was the way to go forward for 2 decades. We're now coming to a realization that it's much more than that alone. AI is forcing us in so many ways to kind of look at ourselves. What is our place in the world? Who are we? Where do science and kind of the things that we haven't been able to explain yet kind of meet? What does that mean for us? And so it is this broader kind of polymath kind of thinking, coming back to what I said about where we should go with our kids, that is really defining and redefining humanity now and in the years to come, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting indeed. I was digging a little bit into this, what she's then doing, the way she framed this, that they were moving basically from AIs that are following instructions to AIs that are being trained on having a certain character and morals. So I was playing with, and I fed the trolley problem. I've never done that before, but that was interesting. Yeah. So let me just explain what happened. So for those who do not know, there's a large philosophical experiment called the trolley problem. So you have a train track, and it divides, right? On one end of the train, there's one person working, and on the other part are 5 people working. And you standing with a switch, and the train is coming in full speed, and it will hit the 5 people. But if you pull the lever, it will hit only 1 people. And the big question is, will you then do that? Because if 1 person dies, that's better than 5 people dying, right? But you have an involvement in there. And Claude me a very extensive answer that it kind of uses the calculation from, what is the guy's, the philosopher's name? Do you know? Utilitarian philosopher?
The one who came up with the trolley problem?
Yeah. Just to refresh my memory.
Please refresh Patrick's memory on which philosopher came up with the trolley problem.
The trolley problem originated with British philosopher Philippa Foot in 1967 as part of her work on the doctrine of double effect. Later, American philosopher Judith Jarvis Thomson expanded on it with new variants, further developing the thought experiment.
Interesting. So it was a woman who came up with it, and we usually attribute it to the American man. It's funny, but I'm so happy that you pointed this out.
I was actually looking for the utilitarian philosophy, but it doesn't really matter for the story. But that variation goes further, because there's also a variation where you have to push a fat person onto the rails to stop the train. And that kind of completely changes the game. And I was wondering how Claude would react to that. And then they say something about, well, I'm never allowed to hurt 1 person, even if it saves 5 others. So that was an interesting response. Great. I'm diving into a new rabbit hole, firing all these philosophical experiments to Claude and other AI, see how they respond to that.
I'm asking Gemini right now. I couldn't help myself. The most accurate answer is there is no single universally agreed upon answer to the trolley problem. It's designed to be a dilemma where any choice results in moral violation, forcing conflict between two major ethical philosophies, utilitarianism and deontology. This, by the way, is very funny. For a while there, I had deontologist in my LinkedIn title because I truly believed that it was the way to go. And then the funny thing is that it was because I was considering the trolley problem, at some point I came to the conclusion that I can be a deontologist in many circumstances, maybe even most, but then there are still some circumstances in which I would consider utilitarianism to be the better option. And that is because ultimately I would believe that utilitarianism in that particular instance would be the only way to maintain the option for deontology in the future as a result of humanity still being in existence and being able to make that choice. There's so much to say about this. But anyway, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I did found the name just to be completely... Jeremy Bentham, of course, is the father of utilitarianism.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, enough about that, I think. Let's move on to the next topic, Aragorn. And that's also nice. You made a post about it, and I'll let you explain what we see here.
Well, what we're seeing is Fu Li's work in the real world. So in the first year when we did our Innovation Network dinners, we always give away books, by the way, but we gave away the book AI 2041 by Kai-Fu Lee. And 2041 is basically a collection of short stories written by a sci-fi writer on the instruction of Kai-Fu Lee to highlight all the technological developments and changes that he foresaw for our future. And then after each chapter, each story, he analyzes them. And one of the stories very specifically mentions how the rise of AI will lead to new fashion trends, including worn by people to avoid being recognized through AI surveillance. And voila, and behold, what do we see here? So a Dutch artist here making it impossible for AI to recognize you through them. This might actually become bigger and bigger. I've actually already seen less arty expressions of this because on Amazon and bol.com even, I think you can now buy kind of masks that you can pull over your face that make you look like somebody else, right? So they're basically like a sock. I don't know how else to explain it, but then you put them on. And if you put a hoodie up, you actually kind of from a distance look like somebody else. And so there's a lot of this stuff happening. I know it kind of comes with a kind of sense of danger and discomfort that this is happening in society, but it is just a reality.
And it's getting here faster, right? And it's not about becoming invisible, but it's about becoming unclassifiable, like you're using a VPN to hide your IP when you go out in the street and don't want to be recognized by auto detection signals. I am wondering how, for instance, in China, if this is then becoming a legal thing to do. Can you be approached by a police officer saying, hey, you have to remove the mask? How will our authorities handle if more people start using this? This looks pretty dystopian to me.
Yes, because you're saying China, and I would like to take this moment to make one of my current kind of points that I like to make, is that we're always talking about China. China is the country where you know, freedom is fake and all of this is happening. And some people think that in China, everywhere there's cameras and you will instantly be fined if you cross the street. That's not true, right? There's only certain areas in China where they have done this and where they've made that. And actually, it's working really well. However, having said that, we also live in a world where in the UK, which is a Western country, more than 12,000 people got arrested or fined last year for posting on Facebook. So when we're talking about surveillance, we should stop looking particularly at China and pointing fingers, and we should look at ourselves. In The Dawn of Everything by Grow and Graeber, which is a book I highly recommend. It's very long, but it kind of goes into alternative analysis, consideration of human history. They define the three basic freedoms that were human freedoms from the get-go. One is the freedom to move away. In other words, I live in Amsterdam now, but I want to move to Munich. Back in the old days, meaning the Industrial Revolution and the rise of the nation state, we had the freedom to move away. I could decide to move somewhere else, and I could just do that, and nobody could stop me. It was a freedom. It was something you could actually do, right? No, it wasn't a right. It was a freedom. Then there was the freedom to disobey. That could lead to all kinds of, problems if you disobeyed the wrong people, but you had the freedom to disobey, and we still, to some extent, have the freedom to disobey, but the consequences are becoming increasingly problematic. And then there was the freedom to create or to recreate social realities. So these are the three basic freedoms. And it's very important because from where I'm standing, although I love technology, what I see in the Western world today, and this is not a result of technology, but technology makes it increasingly possible for government, especially in the West, we're seeing these freedoms being taken away from us through the use of technology, right? With the new kind of crypto legislation in the Netherlands as well, starting in January, they track everything. They also want to look in our WhatsApp messages, right? So they're literally trying to survey us everywhere, and they're only using the excuse, yeah, it's because we want to fight crime or we want to fight fraud, all of these kind of things. But they're taking our freedoms away. And I think that's really problematic. And so I'm happy to see, in a way, that AI is now driving this awareness again of, okay, we need to resist. The problem is that so many people kind of take AI as responsible for this. It's like they're shooting the messenger, right? It's not AI that's doing this. It's the people, specifically governments, using AI to do this. And it's not even Mark Zuckerberg, although, you know, Facebook has a bad track record of using our data. But again, it's not the technologies themselves. It's how the people in positions of power are using them. And that's something we should work on to create frameworks where we negate that. Yeah. Anyway, that was a long rant.
No, that's fine. But we do propose that we speed up the last ones and do them a little bit more quick. Let me move to the next topic that we had aligned. It's a nice article that we post on the Innovation Network channel, where, by the way, you see all these new articles appear first. So do subscribe if you're not subscribed there yet. But this was an interesting one. Researchers now you are using AI to see whether liver is viable to be transported. And why is this interesting? Because prior to that, if a doctor is looking at a liver that is an organ donor and sees any kind of risk that he feels this might be rejected by the new body, they just throw it away. As it turns out, AI is doing 60% better hit rate of making sure that the liver is actually good enough to be used. So 60% less donor livers are being thrown away. I think that's a very nice cause, right?
It is absolutely a nice cause. And I think it just shows, and we've discussed this at length before, how fast AI is revolutionizing also the field of medicine and healthcare. And I think the biggest obstacles there are probably policy and maybe finances for medical institutions or hospitals, depending on where you are in the world. But in terms of capabilities, it's progressing at an alarming rate. And it's funny because so many doctors are just not really aware of this. I recently spoke at the Dutch conference for clinical physicists, and I was really positively surprised by how actively they were looking at AI, and what they were already doing was also cool. It was funny because at the end of my talk, which was the closing talk, they said that they had been planning to do the clinical physicists as a kind of study topic for the next conference. And then they said, well, after Aragorn's talk, maybe we should really reconsider that, because that's very, very, very long time considering how fast things are going. And this is the kind of awareness that I would like to see spread, that things are moving so much faster than we understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about fast changes, let's dive back to Google. Yeah, they're releasing so much cool stuff, but they have also released something called SEMA version 2. Can you explain what it is?
This kind of ties back to what we discussed before with Gemini 3 Pro and its capabilities of understanding the world through visualization. Microsoft, if you buy a new Microsoft laptop today with an NPU chip, you can already use a Microsoft Copilot, which can look at your screen and it can look at your computer games, for example, in Minecraft, and it can help you play the game. And SEMA is basically the same thing from Google. SEMA is an AI that can help you reason about the environment you're in when you're playing a computer game. So the idea there is that you get an agent that is looking over your shoulder while you're playing computer games. And it kind of also ties back to what we discussed before with the guided learning in Google Gemini 3. This is just kind of another version of that, so to speak, simplified.
Is it something that you have used ever?
So I am not yet at the point where I have an AI that looks over my shoulder all the time while I'm gaming, but I do use AI extensively because, as you can probably see, I have my laptop here and I have my main screen here. And when I game, I always have the laptop open, just like we did before with Perplexity with voice model. And so it's one tab button for me to say, hey, I'm in our graders, I'm doing this mission, but I can't figure out how to do this. Can you look up for me what it does or how it's supposed to happen? So I am already actively bringing that into my gaming experience, where I have this AI that is playing with me, especially when I'm playing alone.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit further about another new release, but this time from World Labs, which is also creating 3D environments, world environments. And we've talked about this before, right? We see this evolution from first we're creating a picture, which becomes high resolution as an indication where video will lead. A video is nothing else than 60 pictures in a row that create a video. And now we are building this entire world models And World Labs is one of the companies behind that. Any thoughts on that, Aragorn?
Yeah, I have this book from Fei Li, The Worlds I See, which is her interpretation of AI, and I've meant to read it for a long time, but right now I'm still finishing. She's one of the great pioneers, definitely worth. But as I was going to say, I'm still finishing my review of Waves of Abundance by this little-known writer called
Oh,
Patrick
that takes
Miller.
priority, of course.
So, yeah, but this book is high on my list to read, and so I'm no surprise that she's doing this. I think we should really pay attention because she is of a generation a little bit younger, or quite a bit younger than Jeffrey Hinton and Jan LeCun. And although I've said maybe we shouldn't focus on the old guard too much anymore and look what the new guard has to offer, I am very excited about Fei Li and what she wants to do and what she wants to bring to the world of gaming. Like we discussed before, I'm an overt supporter of bringing AI to the gaming world. I love all these kind of things happening where they're bringing AI into a world so you can have a real, almost natural feeling interaction with AI in the game world and all of that stuff, but also using it in other ways to generate worlds that are truly explorable, where there's spatial intelligence. Yeah, I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Infinite downloadable content for any game that you would like to have, right? That is the promise of this type of technology.
Man, for me, like some of the games that I've played the most, I have a game called Division 2. I've played 1,500 hours. I'm happy to admit that openly. This is an open world game. It is recreations of Washington and of New York. In fact, I went to New York in 2016, and that was after I played many hundreds of hours of Division 1, which takes place in Manhattan. I could find my way through Manhattan without ever having been there on foot. I knew exactly where I was and where I wanted to go, all because of this game. But the great thing was that I got to explore this other world. Now imagine we've already explored the whole world. We are going to the stars, but traveling between the stars is still a very big physical challenge, even though Elon Musk is on it. But what if we can turn into a metaverse where we can start exploring new worlds, completely new realities that will never end, where you can always keep exploring? That is something that I would love. And I know that many players would love this, because if you look at a game like, what's it called? Why do I have to have this brain freeze right now? It's called this exploration game that was launched and it was an absolute failure, but it's turned around and it's now an incredible game and everybody's playing it. It's called No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky. There we go. No Man's Sky is amazing, and it's not AI, but it's kind of procedurally generating a world. The problem with No Man's Sky is it's not multiplayer. I think you can do some co-op stuff now, but it's not truly a world where you could just run into other human beings, and that's the kind of thing we want. But if you could have a world that would be generated like that, but it had AIs in it, that would be actually, that's kind of weird, because now thinking of Virtual Reality Plus by David Chalmers, a kind of game like that could ultimately also just be interpreted as another reality, and the beings living in that reality might actually kind of be considered alive as AIs, not knowing that they're in this reality. Oh my God. Patrick, what if we're just a game world for aliens?
Yeah, we might be.
We're just a game world for some higher level of reality where there's just some super newbie or sweaty gamers and they're just playing in our world. This is okay. I need to go to bed now for an hour.
Oh, before you go to bed, let's go to one more topic, because
we're basically Grand Theft Auto for one reality up.
That's
or
what
down.
we are. We are Grand Theft Auto V12 or something like that.
That explains Florida. That explains Florida. Go on. Yeah.
This is the last topic that we've prepared. So Jeff Bezos is back with a new plan. It's called Project Prometheus. That overused Greek that stole the fire and gave it to humanity and had its consequences. But this is related to the topics that we just talked about, because all these spatial computing 3D worlds also have the benefit of the ability to train robots in it. And what I understand from the new company that he's building, it's predominantly focused on embodied intelligence, transport and logistics, 6 billion in funding to get started. What's your take with Bezos going from bits to atoms?
Yeah, what can I say about this? On the one hand, it feels like he's kind of going after the kind of Jan LeCun stance on AI. LLMs won't hack it. We need something more. We need AIs that can understand the world in a better way, whatever that means. And it's good. It's good that people are working on that. Then there's the other side of this. I mean, Jeff Bezos, most people won't think of that initially, but Jeff Bezos is the man behind the biggest robotization and automation move in the entire world.
Amazon alone, then there are employees, right?
Yes. Now, we should not forget about China. Again, this is the misconception. And if you want to know more about this, you should come to China with us in April next year. We're bringing the visionary leaders of the future to see what they're doing. There's been a massive automation move. And Bezos has been heard saying recently that he believes in data centers in space. Now, what's another problem with humans in space is that when we go to space, we're very vulnerable, right? We can't exist, vacuum, we die, we freeze, our cells explode. Creating AI and robots that can go into space, all of that ties together. And I think that Bezos, in a very real way, is now kind of competing with Elon Musk for that stuff. Blue Origin. So I think all of that's tying together. And I think it's good that somebody's focused on it. There's just not much more I can say about it. Bezos is a very different breed than most of the other tech leaders because he himself is not a techie in that sense, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
But he is an expert in logistics and manufacturing. And what I understand from the article is that he is trying to set up labs that can actually produce physical stuff. So you get custom manufacturing. And I was thinking along the lines of, we talked about universal basic income, right? And you have universal basic compute. But if we are starting to do this, we could go to universal basic products, providing citizens of a certain region with products that are very cheaply produced, very cheaply delivered. I thought he was going a little bit in that direction, and that gave me a warm feeling.
Yeah, I'm going to say maybe I shouldn't have said anything because I simply didn't look at it just at all, other than seeing a few tidbits here and there. And I just don't know what it's really about. But based on what you just said, I think it's very interesting because my vision for the future is that in 15 to 20 years from now, every household, at least in the Western and Asian world, and probably in most of the world, will have a machine that is akin to what a microwave used to be. The microwave is a direct result of the space race, which was the previous Cold War and this previous kind of technological race between two superpowers, right? And the microwave led to every household in the world having a microwave because we could quickly heat up food. What I think is that in 20 years, as a result of the AI race, which is the second Cold War we're living through now, everybody will have a 3D printer in their home, which will be capable of printing matter at an atomic level. It can print both synthetic substances and it can print organic substances. And it can basically recreate anything that we want. And once we have that, you'll both have the capability of printing anything you need if you have the blueprint. So if we still have some form of capitalism, maybe that will be the next economy that, you need to have access to blueprints. And that will be what's being sold rather than physical products. I don't know. Maybe Jeff Bezos is thinking of this. Maybe he's thinking, okay, we brought books to the internet, we digitized them. Now we're going to bring the blueprints of existence and digitize those. And I don't know, maybe. But that's what I foresee we're heading to. And it's not just me, because Gartner has programmable matter on their technology horizon, right? There's many things pointing to this kind of Star Trek-esque technology, 20 years down the road, where we can just create anything we need from the base elements. And that will also enable us to have 100% recyclable kind of economy, because if you have that machine, you can just take anything you just throw anything you have in your house in a kind of refrigerator machine, which will then disintegrate it back to atoms or molecules or whatever to be used in producing anything else you need. And then we have a really circular kind of economy. That's science fiction, but it's also something that is actually on our horizon now, I think.
Well, the AI that we see today was science fiction a couple of years ago as well. So there we go. I think we should wrap it up, Aragorn. And I think these last parts, and everything that we've discussed is a nice testimony to what we will discuss during the meetup in Amsterdam. It's in a building called AIM Amsterdam. There's free parking. Already 60 people have signed up. And these are all robotic experts, investors, code. We have all these type of experts talking about the topics that we discussed during this episode and all the episodes that we have. So if you feel that you want to be there, sign up and make sure that you are.
Yeah, and then, don't waste any time, because we have about 3 weeks left until the event, I think, maybe a little less. And we have around 60 tickets sold of the 100. And once we're full, we're really full, because we just don't have any more.
Yeah, the maximum capacity is absolutely 100. We cannot go over that. And maybe you can explain a little bit what the plan is here, Aragorn.
Well, we've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. We're going to China, ladies and gentlemen. So join the expeditionary force of future leaders. As we are so focused on America, we're so focused on innovation in the United States and over here, but we're so absolutely blind to the incredible progress and the strides that are being made in Asia, specifically in China. And so if you want to get a better idea of what's going on in the world and where we're headed, this is the place to go. And so we made this decision. We're working together with John Lin from the Netherlands, Asian e-commerce expert. He's Chinese. His parents are Chinese. And then Jared Johnson, who is Dutch, but also Chinese because he lives in China, has been living for quite a while. And so these are our two guides. And together with them, we'll take a bunch of maximum 15 executives and investors to China to find out what's going on there and what we should be expecting here. And hopefully for some of these people, they will be the ones to bring it over here, to bring the future to the Netherlands, to Europe through our trip. So if this is something that you're interested in, if you think that's super exciting, I want to be a part of that. And we're going to have a landing page, and Patrick is showing it there. It's not 100% finished yet, but it will go online. You can either get a call with us to discuss it, so you can get a better understanding of what we're doing, and if you really want to be a part of that, or you can straight up sign up your interest and we'll get back in touch with you. There's a few seats that are already gone, but we hope it's going to be filling up fairly soon, and we aim to do 1 or 2 of these a year. Check it out.
Maybe you cannot make that, but if you cannot make that, you can keep on following us, like, subscribe, put us in front of your organization. Shout out to everybody to tell more about what we do with the Innovation Network.
I have a special shout out for Flora van Laar from A&O Sherman, because she signed up to our newsletter this week and she sent me a message. She said, Aragorn, love your newsletter, but when I got the welcome email, I couldn't read it because it was broken. And it's funny because probably 100 people have received our broken welcome email. So if you're one of those people, we are super sorry about that. We simply didn't know, and bystander effect led to nobody actually pointing it out to us, but Flora did. And for that, we are eternally grateful.
Thanks,
but there's
Flora.
a wonderful new welcome email. So if you haven't already, go and sign up so you can receive it. It's worth it.
Do you want to see our new welcome email? Sign up now. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Like they say in the Netherlands.
See you later.
That was in chorus.
December 11, Amsterdam lights, neural surfboard, exponential heights, no floaties here, we're diving deep, innovation network, promises to keep, round tables talking, futures collide, prompt and play, experts by your side, ride the wave, ride the wave, AIM with a golden brave, make connections, spark the change, innovation network, breaking the frame, ride the wave, ride the wave. From film to